so great to see everybody here. This is such an exciting moment for us as an industry, as a coalition, as a movement. My name is Valentina Luqueta from UE, and I have a pleasure and the honor to introduce our honorary speaker, Senator Bernie Sanders, who I believe has already jumped on the call. We would argue in UE, not just because we're biased, because we've been in a close collaboration for the last 30 years, since the mayoral race all the way to Senate, that Bernie Sanders is politician that's done the most for our movement. There's not many people we invite to these spaces, but Bernie is an organizer. He is a politician and he's our leader. And he is today to really speak about the importance of how higher ed is part of the bigger efforts to fight against the fascist uprising, and how the workers, when we come together, can not only stop the rise of fascism, but usher in a new vision of society. So I believe the senator is on. So Senator, please take the floor.
Valentina, thank you very much. And let me thank everybody at UE, and I guess AFT, NEA, AAUP are on board as well. UE has a history of being one of the great progressive unions in the United States going way back. And I thank them for what they have done over the years and for what they are doing right now, as well as other unions. We are living in a unique and unprecedented moment in American history. Never before in the history of this country have so few people held so much wealth and so much power. And these very greedy multi-billionaires are not satisfied with what they have right now. They want more and more and more, and they don't care who they step on to get it. Right now, they are moving aggressively to undermine our democracy with massive campaign contributions through their super PACs. The control is essentially both political parties to tell any candidate, any member of Congress who stands up to them, that we're going to spend unlimited amounts of money to defeat you. That's what their power is about. And right now, by the way, they are moving aggressively, these very, very wealthy oligarchs, to pushing artificial intelligence and robotics onto the scene, which will make them even wealthier and more powerful. And the function of AI and robotics is not complicated. It is designed, that's what it's supposed to do, to replace workers. If you are a white-collar worker, if you're working in a university, and AI can replace you, why does a university or anybody else want to pay you decent wages and benefits when you can have AI doing the work you are doing? And if you're a factory worker or a warehouse worker, why does a boss want to pay you when you have robots who can do the work at a fraction, tiny fraction of what an employer would have to spend on you? And what we are gathered this evening to talk about is what May Day is about and the meaning of international solidarity. And this is a really, really profound concept. Profound concept. And what it says is, and I saw somebody just wearing a t-shirt a moment ago, an injury to one as an injury to all. That we share a common humanity. That my pain is your pain, your family's needs are my needs, and we do better. We do better when we all reach out and work with each other. Paul Wellstone, the great former senator from Minnesota, who died much too young, said that when we all do better, we all do better. We're in it together. But it's not just national solidarity. The profound wisdom of people way back when talked about the need for international solidarity. And what that means is that instead of workers going to war against each other, going from World War I think all of you have read how in World War I there was a moment when actually workers, German workers and French workers, in a truce, they came together and understood for a moment Why the hell are they killing each other to make other people even richer? And right now, all over the world, what we're seeing is the oligarchs, enormous power, not just in America, globally. They're getting richer and richer, while people all over the world are struggling to put food on the table, and some are living in terrible, terrible poverty. So what May Day is about is the exact opposite of what demagogues like Donald Trump are talking about. What Donald Trump is talking about is trying to divide us up. I'm white, you're black, you're Latino, you're undocumented. My father came from Poland, your father came from someplace else, your mother came from someplace else. We gotta hate each other because we're a little bit different. And what May Day symbolizes is the concept of a common humanity and internationalism, that we are all in it together. Think of a world where we're not spending trillions of dollars on weapons to kill each other, but investing that money in education and in healthcare and in ways to improve the lives of our children and our elderly people. Let me just conclude by saying this. Our job, it seems to me, who are interested in economic and social and racial and environmental justice, is not just to take on Trump and his authoritarianism and his kleptocracy and his pathological lying and his greed and his massive tax breaks for the rich and cuts in healthcare and all that stuff. Of course, we've got to do that. But we have also got to create a grassroots political movement of working class people, of young people, of people who believe in justice, who can come together around an agenda that speaks to the needs of all rather than just a few. And I got to tell you, I believe that in the last number of years, we have made progress in doing that. And one of the things I love about the UE, I have to tell you, having gone to their convention, it is really cool to see young people with PhDs working in academia right alongside blue-collar workers who are working in factories, standing together, learning from each other. And that's what it's about. Everybody needs health care. Everybody wants their kids to do well and get a decent education. Everybody wants to breathe clean air. No sane person wants to be spending money to kill people all over the world. We want to invest it in improving our lives. So what today is about is an international holiday which says that when working class people, and I'm proud to have come from the working class, when working class people in the United States and all over the world stand together, we have the power. And yes, the oligarchs have enormous wealth, they do. And they have enormous political power, and they own the media. And they're a formidable opponent. But when we stand together, we can beat them, and we are beating them. All of you know the great victory that's Ron Mamdani won in New York City, taking on the oligarchs, taking on the Democratic establishment, taking on the Republican establishment. He had 100,000 people in the streets knocking on doors. And when you have that kind of grassroots movement, it is hard to lose. And that's what we got to do all over this country. We got to bring tens of millions of people together around an agenda that works for all of us. And when we do that, we're going to transform this country and reach out to our brothers and sisters all over the world and create a better world. So let me just thank all of you for what you're doing, and I look forward to continue working with you. Thanks all very much.
All right. Thank you, Senator Sanders, for kicking us off. I'm going to move on and introduce our first set of speakers that are going to build on exactly what Senator Sanders was talking to, and the need to build a grassroots political movement that truly serves us as workers and can show leadership in this moment about what a society that actually cares and actually works for everyone looks like. This first panel is a group of 3 speakers that are going to be talking about the importance of fighting for a public education system and a higher ed system that serves us as workers and students. So this theme is hands-off higher ed, and these speakers are going to talk through what it looks like to be organizing on campus and beyond towards a more positive vision of worker-centered higher ed and how we can actually make campuses and universities actually work for us. So first we have President Johnny Earl, who is the president of SEIU Local 503. who's going to be followed by May Bracelin, who is a former University of Oregon Student Workers, UW Local 8121, and the former University of Oregon YDSA Chair. Finally, we're going to have President Max Page, who is the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association, that are all going to be talking around this theme of hands-off higher ed and how we can be building power in this moment so that we can fundamentally reshift the balance of power that we need to be able to win. So with that, I'm going to be passing it over to President Johnny Earl.
Hi, everybody. My name is Johnny Earl. I'm the president of SEIU 503. We represent 72,000 workers throughout the state, but most importantly, we represent 4,500 higher education workers. And I came out of higher education. I was a custodian at the University of Oregon for over 24 years, leading the fight for equity for all jobs, because all jobs matter. What we're doing here with our workers throughout the state, we have 7 universities in 7 regions of the state of Oregon, and they are presently in bargaining. And even today, I was just at the bargaining table with them, and management is already pleading broke. We know that the federal funding for higher education has constantly went down, but most importantly, under this administration, it has suffered greatly. But at the same time, our workers still need a cost of living to reflect the times. With gas being $5 an hour, $5 a gallon, people are barely surviving. Some of our members can't even afford to live in the community that they serve, where the university is. But most importantly, what we've done in Oregon, which I'm quite proud of, SEIU has joined in with other higher education unions throughout the state. So community college, all the way to other private universities to try to build support around bargaining for the common good. And how do we go by supporting each other at each one of our rallies and at each one of our bargaining campaigns? We're going to put that to test in the very near future as this campaign that I'm leading right now for our universities in the state is coming to plight. Our contract's expired in July. Manager's meeting with us tomorrow, getting ready to get some shitty bargaining proposals, forgive my language. But most importantly, we're getting ready to take our people out on strike if they don't get a cost of living that matters to them. But don't forget, we also have an increased cost in health insurance. There's a lot of things at stake. But at the same time, we recognize the benefits we got, everyone deserves. Anyone who works at a university should be able to get some form of cost of living that matters. But even beyond that, what about the students who are constantly being pushed to pay a higher cost for tuition? Something's wrong with that, especially when the federal funding for grants and loans has decreased. We at the University of Oregon and throughout our other 7 universities are willing to take on the fight to ensure that all workers matter who work at a university, because democracy starts right here. Thank you. I mean,
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you, Johnny. Always a hard act to follow up. Yeah, hi, comrades. My name is May Bracelin. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the former chair of UO Student Workers, United Auto Workers Local 8121, and of our University of Oregon YDSA chapter. Since then, I've been working with YDSA's Youth Labor Committee to help organize student worker drives, student worker unions all across the country. It's really exciting work. I guess to start off a little bit, I'm a senior at the University of Oregon, and for that whole time, I've been really proud to be organizing with my union, UO Student Workers. Really early in my development, I got a job at dining, and I became a member of UO YDSA when there wasn't really, a union or staff to support our organizing. It was really critical that we had that advice from these YDSA socialist labor organizers across the country who had been doing that work. Yeah, last spring, around just this time last spring, my union went out on a 12-day strike and we won our first contract. The first student worker union to win a contract in the state of Oregon, the first wall-to-wall public university student worker union to win a contract at all. It's big news. And I'm really proud to be bringing forward and representing the student worker labor movement on this call. It's big. It's the fastest expanding section of higher education labor organizing And I think it's really pushing the boundaries of what we can do as higher education and as workers in higher education. I have been really pleased and really honored to work with student workers all the way from, the East Coast in Dartmouth and in other drives that aren't public that I can't talk about yet, all the way over to the West Coast. And we are really laying, a foundation for I think something really big coming out on May Day 2028, following kind of my president Sean Fain's call, as well as Chicago Teacher Union's air flight attendants call for a general strike. We are really excited to be organizing student workers both in blue states and in red states, in hostile environments and in more friendly environments to build power, because it's what Johnny said. It's about bringing democracy to the university. It's about thinking about what is a university system that works for its workers, that works for its students, that works for all of us, and not just this tiny group of unappointed bureaucrats. What does that look like, and how do we build that? I believe that we build that through building higher education, through building labor, through giving every worker in higher education and every worker in the world what they deserve, which is a union.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Max Page, and I'm president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association, and we represent 117,000 educators, including 13,000 across public higher education where I come from at UMass Amherst. And I'm actually coming to you from Quincy, Massachusetts, where 399 years ago, the first May Day celebration took place on this continent. These were radicals who'd been expelled from Puritan Boston, building a tentative alliance with Neponset native peoples and celebrated around a tree that served as the first maypole. But zooming 4 centuries forward, I want to tell you a quick May Day story of how a coalition of workers, their unions, faith-based and community groups came together to tax the uber rich, as Bernie likes to say, to win $3 billion a year, all to be invested in public education and transportation. And I'm really sharing this story to encourage all of you to be part of building a 50-state tax the rich movement so workers can have more of the wealth they produced, invest in our schools and colleges and universities, our healthcare, affordable housing, and our transportation systems, and more. So we were a flat tax state for 107 years since the income tax was first installed in 1915. And over that century, 5 attempts to introduce progressive tax failed, and miserably. But finally, because of the growing disgust at the concentration of wealth, the desperate needs of working people, and frankly, really good organizing and coalition, we won. We asked the very wealthiest to pay 4 cents on every dollar, over $1 million in annual income. Think about that. Do you make $1 million in annual income? These are the richest of the rich. All the proceeds from that little tax have to be spent on public education, pre-K through higher education, and roads, bridges, and public transportation. And all the critics, the skeptics said maybe we would bring in $1 billion if we won, but we knew better. And last year, just 25,000 super rich households in a state of 7 million people paid $3 billion in taxes. That's how rich these people are. And that money is making life-changing investments. Free community college for all, a $3 billion bond fund for the public higher education building repairs, hundreds of millions to backfill the cuts to research due to the Trump and Republicans' war on higher ed. More money to finally, we hope, we expect, address the exploitation. The word is what it is. Exploitation of contingent faculty and the low pay of our community college faculty and staff. Universal school meals, free regional buses, more for special education, for childcare, for early education. We built our power together in coalition, and that is key. And we did it in order to win for working people. So we're going to be out on May Day across our campuses, but also marching in alliance with our pre-K 12 members and alongside other workers, celebrating this victory, but also demanding more. We're going to continue to raise our expectations and also, frankly, raise a little more hell in order to win. Because you know what? That $3 billion we won from the super rich, it just wasn't enough. It was really just a good start. So That's my message to all of us. Like, let's join the campaigns that are growing across this country to retrieve workers' money, workers' wealth that is sitting in the hands of far too few people, as Bernie said. Let's be Mayday strong, and we'll look forward to seeing the wave of actions all across the country.
Thank you all so much for sharing. I mean, I heard and felt what it's been like to fight this battle on our campuses as universities operate like businesses instead of in the interest of the public that they are supposed to serve. And I mean, we've all experienced that in one way or another these past few months. And I know how it showed up on my campus. If you joined a little late, I'm Amy, and I'm a student at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I also happen to be one of your MCs tonight. And yeah, like I said, it's been felt here in North Carolina. I mean, in October of this year, a professor, Dwayne Dixon, was put on leave unjustly because, and I quote, he was anti-racist and anti-fascist. That was the words of our university. And in ways that I've never seen before, students and workers rallied and organized and told our university that they serve us, workers and students first. And after 3 weeks of organizing, Professor Dixon was reinstated because the university heard us, because organizing works. And even still, we also understood that that was not the end and will not be the end of the terror that our universities have been feeling all these months. And only weeks later, Trump's compact was introduced to our campus and campuses all around the country. And we rose up again. We challenged the Trump administration and the control that they were trying to assert over our universities. And we rejected the compact, and so did so many of the universities that some of you may be affiliated with here tonight. Because like I said, organizing works. So you can commit to planning a Mayday action on your campus or joining one that might already be getting started with the links that are going to be dropped in the chat in just a few seconds. But I also want to introduce some folks that have been fighting for the freedom to teach, to research, and to learn, maybe at some of you guys' campuses. So in line with that, I'm going to introduce 3 really amazing folks. First, Dr. Leonard Bright, who is a professor of public admin and the president of the American Association for University Professors, AAUP, at Texas A&M. And he's going to take us through what resistance for university workers has looked like on his campus. So let's hear some hype in the chat for him. And then we're also going to hear from Kate Murtha, who is a postdoc at Weill Cornell Medicine and an elected leader of UAW Local 4100, which is the local union for postdocs and researchers in NYC. So some hype for her. And then, last but not least, we're going to hear from Tyler Ayer in this section, in this panel, who is the vice president and co-founder of Ohio University's Ohio Student Association, who has also been doing a lot of work on the ground for students and their rights and freedoms of education. So let's hear from Dr. Bright.
Hi, well, thank you for having me. Again, my name is Dr. Bright. I am a full professor at Texas A&M University, and is a member of our AAUP chapter. It is a chapter, a union over 40,000 strong, and I lead our chapter at Texas A&M. And so most pertinently, I would say that Texas is on the front lines of this battle for the soul of higher education, and specifically against the political interference that we've been seeing in our classrooms. And this has been something that's been going on for at least 4 years. The concentrated attack on our universities all across Texas, and it started with what we call SB 17, which was a law that passed that eliminated our DEI offices. And then there was, SB 17 in its last session that weakened, our faculty governance and expanded the power of our border regions over our universities. So we've been seeing, since that time, faculty being fired for teaching routine topics, for example, like gender theory. There is a case where a student recorded a professor, it went viral. The governor literally called for that professor to be fired. Our president fired her, and then later he stepped down. She is suing down, and she has the full support, legal protection, from the AAUP. We're paying the full cost. We're now undergoing, as a result of that, they sort of said, now we're going to do a syllabus review process. And basically, this is a way for them to start to macromanage what's happening in our classes under the guise of some kind, somehow alignment. And so these policies later, then they came across and they said, now we're going to do more than just that. We're going to ban the discussions of race, gender, and sexuality in our classes. And now you need special approval from the president to teach these classes or to teach these topics in some courses. They're even using AIs to identify courses that they deem to be problematic in that degree. So at this point, faculty face literally termination. We've been told if we teach these topics without approval, we face discipline up to and including termination. And has resulted in hundreds of courses being canceled, as well as being revised, that is. I mean, not even Plato, as some of you may have heard the news, could escape this. One of our professors could not teach, Plato in his classes. This has also affected my class as well. I couldn't teach an ethics and public policy class because I refused to limit discussions on race, gender up to one day or to one reading. So nonetheless, what this has created is a climate of fear. Students are being, asked, and literally there is a snakes portal that the state has set up that students can anonymously report and record a professor. And if the university don't investigate that professor, they risk losing their funding. But in response to that, the good news is that chapter have grown exponentially. We've done 3 major rallies this term, to push back against this. I mean, just 2 days ago, we did a rally against it was a counter protest against a civil discourse symposium that featured Mike Pence. And the argument we argue is that it's so disingenuous to allow civil discourse in this one event and disallow it in our classrooms. So above all, we are working to show to our community, to convince elected officials that higher education is a public good and it's not a spoil.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Murtha. I'm a postdoc at Weill Cornell Medicine and a member of our postdoc union, WCMPU. WCMPU secured our first contract just this past November after a year and a half of brutal contract negotiations during the Trump administration's attacks on healthcare, higher education, research, and international workers. And during our campaign, federal funding cuts were weaponized by the WCM administration at the bargaining table. Repeatedly, they cited these funding cuts as justification for denying us things like job security and undermining protections that we had already fought really hard to win. But through majority collective actions that allowed us to fight back, and WCMPU wound up securing a very strong contract and setting new standards for postdocs across the sector. We joined Local 4100, the local for NYC postdocs and researchers. Our local was heavily engaged in the Kill the Cuts campaigns, which was a mass movement led by UAW to fight back against the Trump administration's attacks on higher ed. And we realized that all of the organizing tools that helped us win these really solid first contracts could be used in our fight against the Trump's administration on higher ed. And our strategy has been mainly to raise public awareness through things like rallies, to apply political pressure, and to fight in the courts. And all of this has been possible because we have a strong union. Through these efforts, thousands of grants have been reinstated, stalled funding has began to be released, and these massive cuts to federal funding that Trump has proposed were rejected by the House and the Senate. A lot of the organizers that were involved in the Kill the Cuts campaign decided that it was time to bring that same strategy to fight for biomedical research funding at the state level. So together we started Fund NY Science, which is a grassroots campaign to fight for New York State science funding. And the campaign turned into something a lot bigger than we could have ever imagined. Over a period of just a couple months, we built abundant and broad support through a growing network of researchers across the state, and we were building solidarity across the sector. So grad students, lab techs, and research assistants were all coming together and starting to have a conversation about the importance of fighting for research funding and the importance of doing it together. As our fight for research funding continues, we're relying on a wider network of researchers, patients, advocates, and supporters of higher education and science. And I believe that organizing collectively across multiple campaigns, we're laying the groundwork for a stronger future for academics and for scientists across the world.
Hello, I am Tyler Ayers, and I'm the co-founder and vice president of the Ohio Student Association, Ohio University chapter. For those that don't know, OSA is a grassroots student-led political organization centered around building student power on college campuses. And this year, our chapter went from struggling to find a faculty advisor to negotiating with decision makers at our school, and I am so excited to tell you all how we did it. So it started in January. The ICE occupation of Minneapolis was in full swing, and a lot of students at OU were becoming worried about something like that happening here. So then on January 21st, we received a call to action where we would walk out in solidarity with Minneapolis's Day of Truth and Freedom. We had about 48 hours to plan a campus-wide walkout, and while we were nervous and maybe even a little scared, we knew we had to step up. And in those 48 hours leading up to the rally, they were filled with nonstop correspondence with my team and generating buzz anywhere we could. We reached out to press, put up literally hundreds of flyers, and reached out to as many campus orgs as we could. And the walkout ended up being a massive success with about 1,000 students in attendance and over 800 signatures on our petition, demanding the university take preemptive steps to ensure student safety in the event that ICE comes on campus. And I will paste our demands in the chat. Yeah, so that event secured us a meeting with university admin where we had hoped to go through each demand and discuss implementation, but instead they brushed us off and gave us a bunch of reasons on why they couldn't or wouldn't implement our demands. We left that meeting feeling frustrated and a little hopeless, but not defeated, and we got creative. So shortly after that meeting, we hosted a town hall open to the entire student body where we invited a panel of decision makers, including the dean of students, the student body president, university legal counsel, and the chief of campus police, essentially taking a closed door meeting and bringing it to the public. This forced admin to address students directly and take a side. While not all of our demands were met, we were able to get the chief of OUPD to publicly state they would not sign a 287G agreement, as well as commitments from the Student Senate to create a system of verification and notification to students in the event that ICE comes to our school. These were huge wins, but throughout this campaign, we noticed an overarching issue. Our university's president was nowhere to be found during this entire process. We had spent months sending emails, inviting her to events such as the town hall, and even putting up missing person posters. We were doing everything in our power to secure a meeting with her, but we received nothing but radio silence, and that was unacceptable. This brings us to last Thursday, April 16th, which was OU's May Day since our semester ends next week. We really built off of the momentum from the town hall and hosted another walkout and rally, this time addressing the bigger issue of our president's silence and refusal to meet with students. Our walkout was at the same time as the Board of Trustees meeting, so we marched straight there, because if our president wouldn't come to us, we would go to her and her bosses. We peacefully and silently filled the meeting and had so many people we overflowed into the lobby. We had taped our mouths and held signs asking our president to meet with us, but she wouldn't even look us in the eye. We took up space in a room we had every right to be in, and you could feel the energy and the tension. We are still working on winning the rest of our demands, but the powerful base we've built, full of people learning how to organize and who we can call on to mobilize, is a victory in and of itself. And it has felt overwhelming at times. Change is never easy, and being the makers of change is even harder. But our opponents are the only ones who benefit when we underestimate our individual and collective power. So to everybody planning actions or hosting actions, I wish you the best of luck, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Leonard, Kate, and Tyler, for speaking and sharing all of your inspiring stories from these past few weeks and months. For everyone on this call, the almost 400 of you who are listening on with me, we just heard the realities of how the billionaire authoritarian agenda is ever so present in our day-to-day, in our education, on our campuses, but even more importantly, how we are standing up for folks in our communities and rising up and speaking out. And workers and students like you all are standing up for your communities and keeping each other safe on the front of academic liberties. But also, there are folks on this call with us today who have also been showing up as ICE intimidates our campuses and our communities at the same time. Just a few months ago, Minneapolis showed us what is possible when workers and students make the decision to rise up and shut down a city because the billionaire class is terrorizing our communities, and the Trump agenda is doing the same. And so tonight, I am very pleased to introduce a few folks to you who have been doing this work all around the country and meeting this moment with the intensity and the fight it requires. So first up, we have Saisha Jindal, who is a student leader with Students for International Labor Solidarity, SILS, at NYU. And then we're going to hear from Ben Lewis, who is a PhD student in statistics and the president of GLU UE 1105, a union for grad workers at the University of Minnesota. And then last but not least, we're going to hear from Sarah Moreno, who is a senior at Florida International University, organizing with Youth Action Fund as president of Icebreakers, doing a lot of that really intense work of leading a student coalition fighting for FIU's agreement. They're against their current agreement with ICE. So let's hear from them in the chat, and I will turn it over to Saisha.
Hi, I'm Saisha from NYU's chapter of Students for International Labor Solidarity. I'm a sophomore at NYU. SILS is a national cohort of students across multiple campuses spanning from the Midwest, the South, the Pacific Northwest. We organize with garment workers in the Global South, making our college apparel, and we use our particular leverage as college students to do so. At the end of last year, we won a huge case against Nike. Nike had stolen $900,000 from workers in Thailand producing apparel for US colleges. We pushed for our universities to cut ties with Nike. And not only did they admit to wage theft, but they paid the workers their money back, along with a historic $42,000 for the worker leader, Cha Fan-du. Currently, we're working on a new campaign called Follow the Thread, demanding supply chain transparency. We sit on a history of student organizing. Students in the 90s and the 2000s ran campaigns to ensure that brands are disclosing all their factories and their supply chains. Recently, we had a naked picket at NYU. We took our clothes off in solidarity with the workers and denounced any sweatshops in our supply chains. The reason that SILS has been successful in all our campaigning work is because we have always centered the workers. We have been in conversation with union leaders and factory workers in the Global South, alongside collaborating with national unions, of course. And we understand that collective liberation is inherently a transnational struggle. Recently, we joined hands with Schools Drop Ice. Schools Drop Ice is a coalition of orgs working to dismantle and destabilize ICE. We are demanding that companies who have contracts with our universities and ICE immediately cut ties with ICE. At SILS particularly, we've been trained with the particular tactics to run and win contract cut campaigns. We are best equipped to slow and disrupt and attack the fascism and imperialism that we see within ICE. So currently we have 5 corporate targets. At NYU, we are targeting Enterprise and Hilton. We have been running our petition. We've been flyering, tabling, reaching out to everybody we flyered and tabled to. I think there's immense excitement among students to take down ICE, to turn to the streets. So we've also been throwing parties for students to ensure that they're motivated. On May Day, we will be having a vigil and also joining our labor partners in having a huge rally, working with organizations on our campus and beyond. Students have been on the front lines, fighting for justice, building collective power, and denouncing ICE, and we will continue to do so. I am so excited to turn people on May Day, bring people in, and I'm so excited to see all of y'all there as well. Thank you.
Hey folks, my name is Ben. I am the president of GLUE 1105, representing a union that represents 4,000 plus grad workers here at the University of Minnesota. I live in Northeast Minneapolis, just miles from where Renee Good and Alex Preddy were murdered by ICE just a few months ago. The last few months here in the city have fundamentally altered something in me. I am a union member, and as a prerequisite, I have to believe in the power of collective action, right? But seeing how our community came together to protect each other was truly astounding. Labor shut down a metro area and pulled hundreds of thousands of people into the streets in a cold Minnesota January. GLUE was a part of a higher ed labor alliance that shut down the state flagship institution. And you know, when we go to protests, right, you often hear this chant of when we fight, we win. And I don't know how much I truly believe that until I saw ICE begin to draw down in our city after this massive wave of organizing. And this was great, right? January 23rd was great, but it was also not enough here. I think all of us know this. That's why we are in this call. And we at UE know the power that workers are able to wield when we stand together, right? And what better time to do that than now? As we sit, the specter of fascism grows taller in our country. Corporations bend the knee as the executive branch continues to consolidate power. Universities strike deals that erode our rights to teach and study freely. Strategic initiatives pour money into AI at the expense of bread and butter infrastructure on college campuses. Our employers have chosen their side in this, right? And it's time to hold them accountable. GLUE and 11 other UE grad locals are demanding universities be remade to better serve the workers who sustain them. That means decent pay, labor protections for all workers on college campuses, commitments to academic freedom and research integrity, preservation of DEI programs, protections for international workers, and finally, that universities be put under public and worker control with free tuition so that all workers can access higher education. And but where do we go from here, from where we are right now? There are hundreds of people in this call: students, custodial workers, professors, educational staff, lecturers, grad workers, postdocs. There is real power in this room. And now is the time to wield it, because our bosses are not going to be the ones to fight for us on our behalf. In Minnesota, it wasn't our university's president walking the streets with whistles, protecting her neighbors and documenting ICE's crimes. CEOs weren't hopping on their laptops at night to plate check suspicious vehicles in their communities. It was the workers who did that. And it has to be the workers to push back against the rising tide of fascism now. And we in higher ed can and should lead this fight. We have the skills, and if we do this together, we have the power to do it. So on April 29th, GLUE is holding a rally demanding the University of Minnesota shut down on May Day. And like on 123, hundreds of GLUE members are flexing their time to stay off campus on May Day. And I'm really excited to see what the rest of you all do on May Day. And I hope to see you out there if you're local. And I can't wait to hear what happens in other cities as well. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I am a student organizer and senior at Florida International University. I'm the president and co-founder of Icebreakers. We are an organization that is funded and supported by Youth Action Fund. We're fighting against the 287G agreement with ICE. If you don't know what that is an agreement in which local and state police departments can deputize officers to act as ICE agents. That is an agreement that our university signed on to. And all across the university and all across Florida, people are opposed to these sorts of agreements. Florida is on the front lines fighting against ICE on campus. these are agreements that currently only exist within Florida universities. So in collaboration with UFF-FIU, our faculty union, we've opposed the agreement, we've provided people with community resources, and we've amassed huge community support from students, faculty, graduate students, staff, all alike. This is a huge win for us because the way that these agreements go through is by keeping them hushed down and quiet, and the fact that we've been able to get a substantial percentage of our school to stand against it is hugely impactful. Our school is a commuter school. It is a working class school. It is a school in Florida. We have a lot of repressive policies, and there's a lot of natural self-policing that goes on. So I'd say our biggest win so far has been kind of changing that culture within the campus. I think, you know, one thing that the opponent wants you to do is to self-police yourself, is to believe that you don't really have any power and that there's nothing that you can do. And so gradually we've been chipping away at that block by getting people to understand, no, we should disrupt. And one of the things we did to disrupt the administration is we did an action on March 13th in which we went to a publicity event for our president, who used to be the lieutenant governor to Ron DeSantis. And we stood up and revealed shirts that were saying ICE off FIU. The repression came down hard after that. Currently, we have 6 students that have been facing conduct charges for something that is, you know, our First Amendment right, our expression of free speech. And I'm really proud to say that despite the fact that our campus is not a campus that has been, you know, known for being, I guess, bold, that is changing because these students are not afraid. These students are lawyered up and they're ready to fight, and we're ready to go public with this fight. And I invite you to support us. And if any of you are facing a current situation where you feel like you don't have the resources to go up against a fight like this, I invite you to join YAF. I'll put some links in the chat, or you can join their Ember program, which is something that we've done through their Spark program that helps you fund and get mentorship for these sorts of situations. If they're coming down on you, it's because you're a real threat. If they're coming down on you, it's because they know how they have something to fear. And the thing I'm proudest of currently is the fact that students and workers alike are becoming very aware of that. And if anything, it's giving us more ammunition. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much to all the speakers that we've heard from today. At this point, we've heard from 9 of y'all, 9 insanely powerful folks that are doing a lot of work, as we heard, all around the country. And even still, that is only a fraction of all of the fight that is really present in all of our communities, the communities that we have built. And a lot of that work is done by you all on this call, as workers, as students, as educators, etc. And as we round out this call, we are actually going to hear from another friend, Deanna Moreno, who is a current representative of District 36 in New York, which happens to be the same district that Zohran Mamdani represented just a few months ago, before becoming the mayor of NYC. And she has roots as a community organizer and is dedicated in a very similar way to a lot of you all to protecting workers and protecting students and fighting for the 99% above all else. So we're going to transition to a video that Deanna, our friend, sent over to us. Okay, so that is
I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties.
No
Go
worries.
ahead.
Thank you so much, Candy. But yeah, so while we wait for the tech things on the back end to get worked out, as I was saying before, we have heard so many different impactful stories from all corners of the country in many different contexts. And in that way, we're also doing a lot of prep as we plan for May Days, as that's going to show up in your communities. And if you all haven't already, toolkits have been dropped in the chat, and they'll be dropped again so that you can figure out who to organize with and alongside come May 1st, and even before, and even past May 1st, in order to make sure and maintain power in your communities and amongst students and workers alike. So I think the video is ready. So we'll hop over to that.
Let's share it in a link afterwards. I'm sorry, friends.
No worries. So sometimes I lie, guys. Sorry. But I'm gonna hand it over to Levin to close us out.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for your patience with our tech as we navigate some of the technical difficulties. And as Amy was saying, let's give another round of applause to our amazing speakers. If I could get some reactions in the chat, either hearts or ta-das, claps, whatever you have it, let's show our amazing speakers some love here. Thanks everyone. It's been great seeing a lot of the reactions that folks are having to the speakers and learning from all of the wins that folks are sharing, all of the challenges that folks are also sharing, and to be thinking about what we're actually fighting for on May Day and beyond. It seems like one of the things that we're hearing a lot from this panel today is just how we can win, especially when working people, whether it's students, higher ed workers, community members, actually come together to make our power visible, we can actually win. As an international student, the last few months, the last year has been a really challenging one, as it has been for many of you. This is one of those years where I've had no choice but to take it day by day and to not be overwhelmed by the feelings of powerlessness. I'm not going to lie, I'm scared, I'm tired, and I am angry. I'm tired of waking up each day dreading what headline I'm going to see in the news. I'm tired of being hyper alert every time I walk down the street. I'm tired of putting on a brave face every time I talk to my mom back home. But like many of you, I'm refusing to be intimidated into inaction because I know from experience that the only way to protect ourselves is by taking collective action and building the grassroots political movement that we need and building the mass movement that has the power to actually fight back. All of us know that we will not be immobilized. We are standing up and fighting back, and we know that we have power and protection in numbers. And we know that this coming May Day, we're going to be exercising that power and making that power visible to everyone and asking our coworkers to come with us. In these moments, I like to remind myself of how I first got involved in the labor movement as a rank and file union member during the first Trump administration in 2020. I experienced firsthand the power of collective action when our UAW siblings across the country came together to beat back University of Washington's admin's attempts to fire international students stuck outside the country, and ultimately to defeat the Trump administration's attempts to deport international students en masse during the COVID pandemic. If you had asked me 17 years ago when I first got to the US that I'd end up working with thousands of my coworkers since this experience to go on strike, 2 strikes, to hold our employers accountable and to actually make higher ed work for its workers that actually do the work, I don't think I could have imagined that. But I also know that I wouldn't have been able to get to this point if someone had not asked me to go to the first rally when we were protesting against the UW admin's attempts to fire international students, when organizers showed me how to think about power and that all of these fights on campuses, at the state government, at the federal government levels are connected. I learned how to speak the language of power through organizing, and it was in these kinds of mass actions where we have the opportunity as a movement to make sure that every single one of our coworkers, every single one of our fellow students, every single one of our community members knows the stakes of what is possible and also what we can win by coming together. As workers in one of the fastest growing sectors of the labor movement, we know how to take on big fights and win. We know how to translate the power of one-to-one organizing into collective power that we can wield both at the bargaining table to hold our own bosses accountable and also at the ballot box to be able to truly make a worker-centered grassroots political movement. We know that by coming together across the divisions that are imposed upon us, we can raise the floor for all workers and set the groundwork for a worker-centered future that includes a higher education system that actually works in the public interest. We're all coming together tonight to rewrite the future of our sector, and by building this movement with this power necessary to reorient higher towards the public good. And we have this unique opportunity to come out in force on May Day. And so I'm going to ask us to share screen really quickly on, thank you, Martha, on the map of actions that are planned for May Day take a look at all of the actions that May Day Strong has on their website of all of these different workers that are coming together to fight for actual worker-centered future. As Brendan is saying in the chat, that's a lot of power that we have the opportunity to draw on and to be able to transform into the power that we need to be able to realize the worker-centered vision for higher ed and for the society that we need. All right. So with that, I'm going to spotlight a couple of other resources that folks have and also ask folks to share as I'm pulling these up to share your plans for May Day. So in the chat, please go ahead if you are excited to be marching, if you are excited to be part of an art build, if you're excited to be doing a direct action. What are your plans for May Day? If you're excited to be, if you're excited, whatever you're excited about taking action on, what are some of the things that you're asking your coworkers to do? Please share in the chat so that folks can get a sense of what is happening across the country on May Day and the kind of future that we're building. Amazing. Sounds like we are hosting events. Great. Lots of marching in Chicago, studying at the library. That's really cool. Teach-ins and helping support students. Great. And I'm loving all of these kinds of different regional emphases that are coming up here. UMass Amherst, May Day Fest, rally in Austin. That sounds great, especially coming off of Dr. Bright's speech earlier and the importance of organizing in the South. Portland, Oregon showing up with May Day events and a lot of exciting energy around them. Detroit rally, great. Amazing. Local march, lots of marches, lots of exciting energy that is happening. If you don't yet have a May Day action that you are planning so far, one thing that you can do is go to, and I'm going to ask some of my fellow organizers to drop the links in the chat, to laborforhighered.org, where you'll find a toolkit that has a lot of the information that you need to set up your own higher ed specific action in advance of May Day. So on May Day, we have this incredible opportunity to make our force as higher ed workers visible across these 3 demands that our amazing speakers have covered today. First is hands-off higher ed. So really digging into how we need the freedom to research, to learn, to teach, and to be able to have the agency as workers and as students and as community members to be able to have a say in higher ed systems everywhere. Like Max and other folks were saying, democracy truly starts from campus, and this call to action is really speaking to that need to have an autonomous higher ed system. The second theme that workers across the country are coming around is the freedom to teach, research, and learn. We heard from Dr. Bright, we heard from Kate, we heard from Tyler, organizers that are thinking about how to protect and advance their freedom to teach, to research, and to learn so that higher ed can truly serve the public and further the public mission that it was designed to do. Finally, workers are coming together around funding education and not war and deportation. Through all of the speeches today, we've heard a lot about how workers are coming together to demand more from our employers, and ultimately how we need to fundamentally rewrite how higher ed is being funded so that we can get more funding for education, not the war and deportation that the current administration is funding without our support. So with those 3 demands, we're challenging everyone on this call to A, turn out to your local action, B, turn out 5 of your friends or coworkers to turn out to your action with you. And for that, you're going to be able to find sample templates and materials to be able to easily reach out to other coworkers and friends on the toolkit that Candy just dropped as well. And finally, we're asking that if you do not have an action currently planned, that you start thinking about one and a way to make higher ed workers visible on May Day as folks are planning a bigger march or things like that as well. So with that, I'm loving how folks are continuing to share their plans in the chat and would encourage folks to do that. If you're looking for folks to go to marches with you, or if you're located in an area where you want to link up with other higher ed workers, please continue to use the chat to coordinate. And we are about at the end of our program. I wanted to give one last thanks to our speakers for taking us through a very full agenda today, and for all of the work that they put into organizing and all of the power that they're building on individual campuses. This is a truly exciting moment for us to be coming together as a higher ed labor movement, And also as a unified front of students, workers, community members, alumni, all of us are going to have to build this unified front in order for us to win the world that we deserve. And we have a world to win. We know that we can get there. We've been hearing all evening about how we can get there by having conversations, by moving our coworkers through apathy, through fear, by taking action on May Day, and then translating all the energy that we're building on May Day to be able to have lasting structural power, and translating that into power on our campuses, power at the ballot box, and truly transforming into a working class movement. All right, with that, I'm going to close us out. Thank you, everyone, for sharing part of your evening. Thank you to all of the co-organizers of this call, and we look forward to seeing you in the streets on May Day.